is something that is an appropriate technology for the development of a particular set of creative or technological discourses and practices. And I think that we need to start understanding the place, that there are certain places where the access that one assumes in some other places are not readily apparent or not even effective. So I'll leave it with that, and I want to engage people in the discussion.
I have some pictures, that's why I'm coming here. Because I like to be here, but that's okay. Actually, not all of the symposium, same the podium. One second. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit more on the scientific research scope, but connecting a little bit at the beginning with what Gunnar said on symmetries, but taking it to some places and perhaps some specific places in which I had some opportunities of participating or making some kind of research. So place is a concept, much more than a real physical geographical notion, today more than before. In the 90s, one of the most important circumstances in the case of countries that were not part of the West was their somewhat participation in the international context find a place in some way. This was done in terms of new media art in different ways, like participations in symposiums, in festivals, biennales, and other events. Some of these artists started to work abroad, some are today part of the mainstream culture, the mainstream art. But beyond this topic that has been over-discussed, the most important concept was the internationalization that was part of a much broader phenomena of mediatization of information, which offered new means, more democratic to some extent, to participate in global debates from local context. Therefore, many of those cities which were not seen because they were not part of the media are today visible in a media geographic map. As time has passed, we see that those places, to my perspective, may seem their enrollment and participation in the global context as a sort of triumph. However, the situation is far from over. Yes, indeed, many cities, particularly the more urban and overpopulated ones, the more connected ones in the world, are part of this global culture. This is also part of the World Economic Remapping and reconfiguration, since more than 50% of the world's GDP comes from 30 non-Western countries. Nevertheless, this brings a new challenge, which is to bring visibility to places that are not considered in this geographic milieu. For example, in my case, after working in Lima, Lima, Peru, here, for many years, I organized a New Media Art Festival, and I decided to step out of it and bring my attention out of Peru to other contexts in Latin America, where I saw that nobody seemed to care about. At the same time, the festival I founded and its new team started a much more difficult task than the one I had before, which was the development of a national outreach, to extend the festival from Lima to Peru. My personal research turned out to analyze Central America and some parts of the Andean region. It's amazing to see how many things are going on in places that remain invisible to our media consciousness. You can check some of that research at ATA's website. The landscape of new media in Costa Rica, for example, maybe seem interesting and yet complex. Costa Rica, with 4 million inhabitants, it's one of the most developed and active countries in Central America. In that sense, it acts as a Central American hub for regional offices of transnational corporations, establishing call centers, and even Intel that has installed in 1987 a chip plant. The commitment to education and to the information society back in the 90s, at the beginning of the 90s, seems to be paying back in Costa Rica. Having one of the best educational levels in Central America, the e-readiness of the student population meant that all schools not only gave basic courses on computing and that they were wired to the internet, but that students are taught 2 foreign languages, French and English, which does not only becomes valuable for prospective undergraduate studies, but also much more practical for the immediate job market. This e-readiness in young people generates a path dependence for the development of a new media market and therefore higher new media education. The Veritas University, for example, though it's not public and with fees of around $400 per month, maybe seem prohibitive to some of the population, but it gathers students from all over Central America and even some students from abroad, from Europe and the USA. Veritas, which has quite an impressive infrastructure, is composed by an international faculty, and its academics programs include animation, film and TV, architecture, advertising, product design and photography. Many of their students pay their fees with their work in call centers, for example. But new media culture has also its contemporary liaison with the work done at the Contemporary Art and Design Museum, the MADC, which is now directed by a Cuban-born curator, Ernesto Calvo. And perhaps one of the most prominent activators around new media in Central America. And the idea was to establish the MADC as the main hub of Central American new media art scene in a strategic sense, because nobody in the world will be perhaps become interested in what's going on in Nicaragua or Honduras in such a narrow geographic strip of the world. But clustering them together does give much more possibilities for international visibility. But why we want to make these new places visible? For what? Well, visibility enables collaboration and awareness, especially when we deal with regions that have similar problems and perhaps the same solution. Without this e-readiness in a population, the local situation of new media in Central America, for example, would have been quite different. This brings us back to the necessity of understanding the importance of science and technology as a constituting component of society. It seems that new media art is dissociated from these areas for many reasons. One may be that products that come out from technology are mainly commercial, constituting conceptual new media fads, such as located media, biotech, or whatever. And perhaps the works that came out of this are not so interesting and conceptually poor sometimes. This is I think it has to do because they don't bring the necessity to build a liaison with society. As in the case of the presentations that we had in the morning with digital communities, Electronica, I think there are good examples on those works that we can bring awareness by sharing the collective intelligence that exists in society. Scientific research has been very compartmentalized. It was a complicated word and a 3-minute situation. Okay. Scientific research has been compartmentalized. Has a very compartmentalized way of doing things, and the problem is that their topics are not addressed in a critical way. And yes, indeed, media art could address those concepts critically. On the other side, media art is not involved in innovation as science does, though supposedly there should be a critical posture in arts and social science in terms of scientific development. In cases of places where there is innovation happening, where there are some media labs, like I think it was the case with MIT and the laptop, the $100 laptop, whatever, Perhaps this development may seem quite disappointing or techno-deterministic if we tend to have to bring a critical inquiry. We cannot analyze the development by purely simplistic or deterministic definitions that tend to dissociate the technologies in practice from their practitioners, which is what Guna stated some minutes ago, especially today, where another fact, the Web 2.0 fact, is bringing new tools and a greater malleability of the technological artifact. Scientists face great uncertainty each time they are working prior to the construction of a fact. And indeed, not all sciences could become experimental. The management on uncertainty in scientific practice recounts elements at a micro-social level, which are usually heuristic and require much detail and local articulations. It is important to mention that microsocial conditions usually occur locally and are the result of the enculturation of natural objects that become part of the social amendment that generates effects which should then be socially integrated. We should therefore unfold as much as possible explanations from the repositories of scientific knowledge that are increasing the cognitive surface of the world's information. This would enable accepting new laboratory models, such as another fact, the media labs, that will arise in the future with a much more critical perspective towards science and innovation, but at the same time participating in this innovation process and therefore entangling more actively with society. A great amount of public money is invested into science, and the future of many important issues around nature had to do with it. As in the case of the invisible areas, we also must search for the visibility of science. Scientists should reflect on the importance of being critical and open to discussion around scientific research. The politics should be revealed, discussed, and constructed. To conclude, the concept of visibility is broad yet powerful. It uncovers and at the same time brings awareness and social consciousness to the issues that are happening in the world. This is what media art, from my modest perspective, should focus its attention to develop a much more critical innovation, a means towards a much more critical innovation.